What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thanks for tuning in. So this is actually part 2 of a video that most of you guys probably just watched. We are going through and completely rebuilding the fuel bowl for a 7.3 liter Powerstroke, more specifically for a 7.3 liter Powerstroke in a Super Duty truck. If you haven't seen the first part of this video, I would highly recommend you go and checking it out. The first part is completely disassembling the entire fuel bowl, and this part of the video is going to be going back through and completely reassembling it with brand new seals and parts to make it function just as good as new. So without further ado, for those of you that have been waiting, we'll go straight into the reassembly of the fuel bowl. So when reinstalling these fittings, I decided to use this specific type of Loctite. It is specifically meant for hydraulic fittings. It's the same Loctite I used on my hydraulic oil lines or my high pressure oil lines. It's basically meant to be under high pressure and exposed to solvents or impervious to solvents, so you're not leaving different pieces of the sealant that can go through the fuel system or whatever system it's in. You guys can choose to use whatever you would want, but the main thing is you don't want something that can end up breaking down and sending bits of debris through your fuel system and clogging up your injectors. That turns something very minor into something very major very quickly. So next up is reinstalling the plugs on the back of the fuel bowl itself. So you'll see as I go through and reinstall all these new different O-rings, I just lube them up with a little bit of clean motor oil before they go back in. You could probably use diesel and get away with it. I'm sure it's fine. I just decided to use oil. So I'm not going to make you guys watch it in real time. We'll kind of go through this process fairly quickly and stop in important parts. But yeah, so there's those two ports nice and installed. And now we'll move on to the drain valve. So on the white insert of the drain valve, you'll have that one little O-ring at the bottom that I showed earlier on. So we're going to go through, lube that up with oil, replace it, and it'll be good to go back and slide into the drain assembly itself. So when you're putting this back into the assembly, it's pretty straightforward. Just like you took it out, make sure you line up those flat surfaces with the holes on the back, and it will just push on into place. As you'll see, it takes a little bit of force to get that final snap in, but you'll really be able to feel it when it finally gets that last little click into its final position. Now that you got that in place, you'll take that little tiny ball that you took out of it and drop it back down into its hole. Make sure it's in there nice and good, and take that little cap that we pulled out of the top and just push that right back down on top of it. It doesn't really click or anything, but it'll sit nice and flush, or just about flush, with the top of the white plastic part. Once you have that, you can go back through, rotate those back around to the other side so that they're sitting right where they should be. I left them so that they were in the open position, just like you see there. So now the two final O-rings for the drain are these two thick little ones. Lube them up with a little bit of oil, and then you're just going to drop them in the back of those drain holes, right where those openings are. It's pretty straightforward. They do actually push all the way down into place, so they're almost sitting flush with the surface. Doesn't take a whole lot of pressure. Just use your thumb and you can push them right back down into place, and then it's ready to go back on the fuel bowl. Putting back on is pretty straightforward. Put that little yellow lever right on top. Make sure it's sitting in the right position, which for me was the drained position as I left it. Then I just did a simple cross tightening pattern to tighten them all down. I didn't worry about getting them too crazy tight, just got them good and snug with the hand driver. So next step was the electrical plug on the back of the fuel bowl. This again contains your water and fuel sensor, as well as the plug or connecting point for your fuel bowl heater. Just takes two new O-rings, different sizes, but it's pretty easy to tell which is which. And then you just press it right back into place, and it sits pretty darn flush. After that, you just screw it in nice and hand tight, and it's good to go. With that in place, everything on the back of the fuel bowl is all buttoned up. And now it is time to start working on the inside of the fuel bowl, replacing the O-rings on that plunger and putting in the brand new fuel bowl heater. As you can see, all nice and cleaned up and ready to go. So now when you're putting back together this little plunger thing in the middle of the fuel bowl, there's a couple O-rings to worry about, and make sure you put it back together in the right order. Riff Raff has a really good diagram on their website with the instructions that show that, and that's what I've been using on this whole process, but it's not too complicated. So here's the first O-ring on that little tiny plastic plunger, and then the second O-ring goes on the outside of the whole assembly itself down at the bottom, as you can see right there. So now when you're putting it together, you have the little plastic end piece or cap that sits all the way at the top on one end of that little metal rod, and then that little plastic plunger, we put the O-ring on, it slides right into the base of it, right like that. Then this whole assembly, as it sits right like it is, slides in up from the bottom up into this plastic shaft, all the way up to the top. As you can see the cap right there at the top, kind of hard to tell in the video, and then the spring simply pushes up over on place on that little end cap. And that is all it takes. It's pretty simple. So now that it's all assembled, we can drop it down into the fuel bowl. I ended up using my pick tool to kind of hold it all in place while I was dropping it in. It's not too hard. You can figure out a way to do it. The pick tool worked well for me. It doesn't press all the way down into place. The spring holds it up, but now it is ready to slide the fuel bowl heater in on top of it. Now in sliding the fuel bowl heater in, the plug actually has to do this little bit of a weird twist to it to get the wires to line up with a little metal tab. It's a bit of a pain in the butt to get lined up, but you'll get the idea. It's not too complicated. You just got to see it in person. But yeah, that little plunger slides through the middle of the fuel bowl heater, and then it drops down into place, and then you can just slowly tighten it back down. Much like the other parts that are spring loaded, I just worked my way back and forth between the two screws until it was all nice and flush and sitting tight. So there you guys go. The inside of the fuel bowl is complete, good to go, nice and new. You can test out that little plunger on top by giving it a press to make sure it moves freely, but you shouldn't have any issues with it. Now, I didn't make you guys watch me struggling to get that plug on. It is a little tricky, but you'll figure it out. I ended up using some needle nose pliers, the same ones I used to take it out, and was just able to kind of press it back into place. So now what we have left to do is reinstall the fuel pressure regulator. So the first component we're going to be working on is the little sleeve that we pushed out with the socket right at the very beginning. That's the first O-ring that we have to replace on the unit. It's probably a good thing I'm replacing this because this one was pretty pressed flat and wasn't too flexible anymore. So we'll get that off, lube up the new one, and then it's good to go back in. So here you see O-ring goes in first, and then it just pushes right into the whole assembly. As you can see, doesn't take much force, and it sits nice and flush with the surface. So the next part to go in will be this little brass poppet. Now the little black thing you see on it is not an O-ring. It is somewhat of a seal, but it's not an O-ring, so that doesn't come with the kit. If yours does look damaged or needs something, there is a kit you can buy. It is the FPR rebuild kit or the fuel pressure regulator kit, but this was in good condition, so I ended up reusing it. There you can see the spring sits inside of that little brass fitting, and then like I showed earlier on, you have the O-ring that goes on the whole housing itself, and then that will slide right in on top of it. This O-ring does press into place. It is a little bit of a tight fit, but it does fit. So here's a good look at it all seated up, and then in the middle of that fitting you can actually see the drilled out spot in the middle for the spring. When you're putting this on, make sure that the spring lines up with that hole, otherwise the spring is going to be too compressed and you're going to be getting much higher fuel pressure readings than what you should be. So just make sure, be careful, it's not too hard, just be careful to make sure that the spring lines up in that little spot. As you're tightening it down, to get it started, you kind of have to hold down against that spring pressure to get the two bolts or screws started. And then again, like all the other spring-loaded things, just slowly tighten it in back and forth until it's seated nice and flush. You don't have to go super tight. You are going into aluminum, but get it snug. Alrighty guys, we are done. The whole fuel bowl is wrapped up. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, whether it was 1 or 2 videos. I can tell you it's probably at least an hour of footage that I'm going to be going through and editing, if not more than that. Let me know how you guys felt about the whole like voiced over walkthrough thing as I'm working on it. Hopefully the camera angles were good enough. I actually had my brother working in the garage behind me. Obviously the audio wouldn't be great, and so I decided to do the whole voiceover thing. So let me know what you guys think about it. Hopefully it turns out pretty good. I'll be going through and editing it tonight, and I guess I'll find out then. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. So now that it's done, let's do a quick walkthrough of everything I did. Won't go too crazy on the explanations, but I'll give you a good look around so you guys aren't just stuck up on the tripod now. Alright, so here's the whole aftermath of everything. Pretty chaotic. Here's all the old, nasty, crusty O-rings. Got the lights set up there and there. Try to get you guys a good angle of things, or a good lighting of things. But let's give a quick look at everything. So, like I was saying in the beginning, your fuel bowl sits inside the valley of the truck like this, bolts into place on the back. Here on the inside, try to get you guys in the light. You can see, put a brand new heater element in there. That plug down there was a pain in the butt to plug in because it's so tight. I don't have any really long needle nose pliers, but we got it working. Got all the new seals in the check valve here for the stem. That way when you actually put on the filter, it opens up the valve, allows the fuel to flow. But everything's sealed up and rebuilt in there. The reason I chose to actually redo or put in a new heater element, I didn't have any issues with the old one, but I ended up unplugging it quite a while back. Pretty common thing is as the fuel bowl heaters wear out, they end up tripping a fuse, and that fuse is actually tied into the PCM, I think. Don't quote me on that, but it's tied into one of the computers. If you trip the fuse, your truck won't start at all. You won't get anything. I don't think it'll show a wait to start light. Maybe it will, but either way, that's a common issue. So I ended up, a lot of people just unplug them. It's not hugely necessary unless you live in a really cold environment. But I figure we're doing the rebuild. I'm selling this to somebody. I might as well give them a brand new heater element while we're in there. So we did that. Here on the back, we got the, let's see if I can prop this up for you guys. Alright, so here on the back we got, alright, so on the back you saw that I ended up reinstalling these fittings, and that's because when I initially put my 4-line feed kit in from CNC, I kept the fuel bowl and ended up, it goes into this port and these 2 ports, and so I actually beforehand had actually already taken these out. The seal is broken. There's no O-ring on anything. They're pipe threaded fittings, but I ended up going with some Loctite. I believe it's Loctite's pneumatic version, so it should be good for high pressures and oils or solvents. So I put a little bit of Loctite on those, tightened them down. Nothing crazy. In general, for this entire thing, I think the highest torque spec I saw was 20 inch-pounds. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's 20 inch-pounds. The whole thing is aluminum, cast aluminum. You don't want to be cranking on this thing that hard. You will break threads. But anyways, I put those in. Those should be nice and solid. Put a new O-ring on that port, a new O-ring on that port. These are the ports if you're going to be adding fuel pressure fittings or fuel pressure sensors to your stock fuel bowl. I believe this one is post-filter pressure, and I think this one is pre-filter pressure. So replace those. Those go with new O-rings to snug them down into place. Got the drain valve all resealed up. The O-rings in that were pretty nasty. They were these yellow O-rings. Definitely seen better days. So got new O-rings in there. Got the whole assembly resealed up. This right here is the most common fuel leak you will get on any Powerstroke. I can't say for sure on the OBS ones, but I'm almost positive it's the same. Not the bolt is the same, but the leak is the same. These drain valves just end up leaking. The more the O-rings get old, you turn the valve, it ends up cracking or splitting one of the O-rings, and you got oil draining into your valley, down the back of your engine, underneath your truck. If you have a fuel leak, it is most likely this. This is your heater, the plug for the heater element, and the fuel or water and fuel sensor. Not a whole lot to say about it. It's got two O-rings on the back. That's what it plugs into on the inside, right down there. So that's all nice and sealed up. On this side of the fuel bowl, you have your fuel feed line coming in. Ended up not doing anything with that. It's never been out. Never had a problem with it. I don't expect to have a problem with it. I figured just leave it as is. And then this shiny thing right here. I've done another video on this in the past. This is your fuel pressure regulator. Originally from the factory, they come with a cast aluminum one. You can see here, cast aluminum or powdered aluminum, whatever you want to call it. I believe it's cast aluminum. And they are very, very, very prone to cracking if you over tighten this fitting at all. Ask me why I have a nice billet one and a spare aluminum or spare factory one, because I was on a Friday night and reinstalling this fuel line, cracked this threaded shaft straight off of it, as many, many, many other people have done, and I was up shit creek without a paddle because I needed the truck, and the truck was down Friday night. I ended up ordering replacement fittings from a few different places, overnighted them, and was hoping one of them would get in before the end of the weekend. This one came in first. I ended up putting it on. This one came in a couple days later. I'll probably just throw it away. I don't even know. I'm not going to use it. I don't really want to send it to somebody else to use. Maybe they want it, though. But if you're going to be taking this off, my recommendation, just buy a billet one. It's not expensive, maybe 20 to 40 bucks. I don't remember. Buy a billet one so you don't have to worry about snapping those threads off and being pretty well screwed. That is probably the second most common problem I see with these fuel bowls is people breaking off those fittings. I can't tell you how many people I've seen online posting a picture of the fitting broken off. I have a picture of mine myself. I'll put it up here. But posting a picture, something like that, and saying, how do I fix this? So if you're going to do it, you might as well just put a billet fuel fitting in. And then there's that. I think that is all that there really is to talk about. I ended up actually, when I was still using the fuel bowl, I ended up buying an OEM fuel bowl lid. You don't find these, you don't see these very often anymore with this style of filter. Most of the filters you see now, people ended up buying like a Napa filter where the filter is attached to the lid, and they throw this away or something for whatever reason. If you're buying a Motorcraft filter, it's not attached to the lid, and you will need a lid. I don't really have anything bad to say about the Napa filters, but these trucks like OEM parts, OEM stuff, so I ended up getting Motorcraft filters and a lid. To the person that is receiving this, I will generously give it to you. You can do what you want with it, whether you keep it or not. But there you guys go. That is a completely rebuilt, resealed fuel bowl. Hopefully it was useful to some of you guys out there. This was my first time going through the whole process. Took me 2, maybe 3 hours tops. I took my time. I wasn't rushed or anything. I just sat down and started doing it. Super simple. Super simple. Like I mentioned, I ended up buying the kit from Riff Raff to rebuild it, and this is where I buy most of my stuff from, is Riff Raff Diesel. If you own a 7.3, Riff Raff Diesel will be your best friend. They are one of the best, if not the best, when it comes to supplying parts for 7.3 Powerstrokes. Came with a nice chart so you can organize your O-rings, you know exactly what you have. It's a very, very solid kit. Oh, one thing I need to mention is these fuel fittings, when they attach to the fuel lines, have these weird O-rings. They're called, I'm going to butcher the name of it. I'm going to say they're called Viton O-rings. I guess it doesn't even say in there. But they come with these O-rings that are one-time use. When you thread it over to, or when you tighten down the fitting, it almost shreds these around the threads to seal them up. I'll include these to the person that's buying them. If you're ever removing the fuel bowl, you're going to need another set of these O-rings. You got 2 down there for the feed lines. You got 1 down there for the main feed line from the pump, and then you got 1 there for the pressure regulator. I think that's it. That's the last bit of it. That is a fully rebuilt, basically new, not new looking, but basically new fuel bowl. Should serve the next owner very, very well. So there you guys go. That is the full rebuild of the fuel bowl. Like I said, hopefully it was helpful to some of you guys. I know this video is getting really, really long, so I'm not going to ramble on anymore. If the video was useful, hopefully give it a thumbs up. Helps the channel out, helps the channel grow. This is video that I did not have to do. I have absolutely no need for this fuel bowl, but I thought it could possibly be useful for a lot of you guys out there. I'm a big advocate of figuring things out and working on your own rigs. And so, like I said, this is the first time doing it. It's not that bad. If I can do it, you guys can do it. As always, if you guys like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. All these parts I will have linked down in the description for any of you guys that are interested in buying the own kit and do it in your own self. I think with that, we're going to end out the video. Stay tuned. We got a lot of stuff coming. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. Catch you guys on the next video.